Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to look at the last section of this unit on solving equations, and we're going to take solving multi-step equations even further today because we're going to be adding a few extra steps that it takes to solve these particular types of equations, in which you're going to have to do one of two things, or maybe both of these things. You're going to have to distribute in the problem, or then you're going to have to combine like terms before we even start to solve for the variable. So, what do these types of equations look like? Well, as you can see, I have multiple terms that are similar on this side of the equal sign. And so I'm going to have to combine those terms together first before I can start isolating my variable. If we look at the bottom one, I have parentheses, and there's a 6 in front of it. That 6 in front of the parentheses means that I'm going to multiply what's in those parentheses by what is outside of it. So that's where I'm going to need to distribute first before I start solving this problem. So how do you solve these types? Well, first we would distribute. So if you see parentheses in a problem, you're going to have to distribute first. After you would distribute, then if you need to combine like terms, is when you would do that. After we've distributed if we needed to, or we've combined like terms then, now we can solve the equation like we have been. We're going to isolate the variable, and then once the variable's isolated by itself on one side of the equal sign, then we can solve for the variable. So let's take a look at our first example here, in which we have multiple terms that we need to combine. So automatically, if I see two n's on one side of the equal sign, I know that I need to combine them. But then I look to see what my other terms, see if they have something in common. Yeah, I'm going to connect my -5 and my -4. So I'm going to combine those like terms. I'm going to start with my variable. You can start with either one. 8n plus 3n. You're going to always look left here to see what sign or value, whether it's negative or positive, that these numbers have. So 8n plus 3n, well, that's going to give me 11n. -5 and -4, you owe me $5, you owe me $4 more. Now you owe me a total of $9. So I have combined those like terms to give me 11n minus 9. I'm going to bring the other side of the equation down. And now this problem looks exactly like the problems we were doing in our last topic. So I need to isolate the variable. So I'm going to start, I said you can start with any one of these four terms, but I start with the lower absolute value of my variable. Lower absolute value is my 6n. So I do its inverse to move it over here. And that gives me 5n. Bring everything else down. Whoops, I don't need that plus, because all I need is that positive 6. So now, all of my variables are on this side of the equal sign. That means I'm going to put my numbers on the other side. So I do -9, its inverse is plus 9. Do that to the other side. 5n, bring that down, bring my equal sign down. 6 plus 9 is 15. One-step equations left. I have 5n equals 15. Here's where I solve for the variable. Divide by its coefficient, and n will equal 3. So that's how you would solve these types of problems. You're going to combine like terms first. I didn't have any parentheses, so I did not need to distribute in it. Once I've combined my like terms, I ended up with our simple multi-step equation that I just solved to isolate the variable and then solve for the variable. All right, this example, as you can see, now I have parentheses. So the very first thing, if I see parentheses, that I know I need to do is to distribute. Well, what does distribute mean? It means I'm going to take that number that's outside of the parentheses and I'm going to multiply it by each term that is on the inside of the parentheses. Notice that I drew lines underneath. That just helps to keep me organized. It tells me that I have to take that 6 and multiply it with the 2r, and I have to take that 6 and multiply it with the -4. So, I'm going to go ahead and put my equal sign here. Actually, I can bring the rest of this problem down already. And now I'm ready to distribute. 6 times 2r gives me 12r. 6 times -4 gives me -24. So at this point, I have that same type of simple multi-step equation that we've been working on in the last lesson. So now, I always start with my variable, and I start with the one that's the lower absolute value. So I'm going to take this 2r, subtract it, do its inverse, so that I can move it to this side. Bring everything down that I haven't used yet. 12r minus 2r gives me 10r minus 24. My variable's isolated now on this side of the equal sign. I have all the variables on this side, so to isolate it, I need to move the -24 over here. So I add its inverse, -14 plus 24 equals 10. 10 equals 10r. Solve for the variable, so I divide by its coefficient, and that gives me r equals 1. Now, here's where students end up making mistakes. They don't make a mistake in the process. They make simple mathematical mistakes, like -14 plus 24. So, what my suggestion is, if it doesn't automatically come to you, check it in a calculator as well, so that you're not getting problems wrong just because you messed up a simple math part and you've done everything else correct. So yes, use the Desmos calculator, or if you have another calculator available, you can use it as well. Next example. Do you see any parentheses? No. So that means that we only need to combine like terms. So if I look here, no like terms over here. I have 8b, 4, 1, and -1. So I see 3 whole numbers. So I can combine those 3 whole numbers. So I'm just going to start rewriting my next step. But now 4 plus 1 is 5, minus 1 is 4. So now I'm ready to take my lower absolute value of the variable, bring everything else down, time to isolate my variable by moving the number to the other side, so I do the inverse operation. 1 minus 4 is -3 equals 1b. Solve for the variable by dividing by its coefficient, and that gives me b equals -3. All right, 2 more examples. We're going to take a look at them. I see parentheses, so I automatically know the first thing I must do is distribute. So I draw my little lines underneath so I know that I'm distributing. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times -4x, -8x. Then I have plus 2 equals 6 minus 7x. Now on this side of the equal sign, I still see, after I distributed, I see a 6 and I see a 2. So now I also have to combine like terms. 6 plus 2 is 8. Minus 8x equals 6 minus 7x. So I brought the rest of the problem down. Now I'm ready to solve it. So I take my variable with the lower absolute value, that's negative 7. I'm going to add 7x. What I do to one side, remember, I must do to the other side. So I add 7x here. Bring down the next step of my problem. Negative 8 plus 7x is negative 1x equals 6. Now it's time to isolate the variable by moving this 8. So it's a positive 8. The inverse of it is negative 8. What I do to one side, I must do to the other. Negative 1x equals 6 minus 8 is negative 2. Divide by my coefficient to solve for the variable. And now, a negative 2 divided by a negative 1. When you're dividing two negatives, the answer is going to be a positive. Last problem. Uh-oh. Looks a little more complicated. But if we do the same steps, we're okay. I see not just one set of parentheses, I see two sets of parentheses. Which means the first thing I need to do in my first step is make sure I'm distributing through both of those parentheses. So I'm going to distribute here, and I'm going to distribute there. So let's go ahead and bring our next line of our problem down. Negative 8 times 2 is negative 16. Negative 8 times 5m is negative 40m plus 5m equals negative 6 times m is negative 6m. And negative 6 times negative 7, two negatives multiplied, give me a positive 42. So, now I look on this side of the equal sign and I see two different m terms, which means those terms I need to combine. So again, I'm going to bring down the next step of my problem. Negative 40 plus 5 gives me negative 35m, and then negative 6m plus 42. So let's start solving our equation. We have negative 6m, we're going to add 6m, we're going to add 6m, and then we're going to bring down the next line of this, and we're going to have negative 35 plus 6m gives me negative 29m, and that's 42, and then move this, negative 29m is what I'm left with. 42 plus 16 is 58. Negative 29m equals 58. Divide by my coefficient, negative 29. Divide by negative 29. And then I'm left with m equals, and if you need to use your calculator, that's fine, 58 divided by negative 29 ends up with negative 2. So at this point, you're ready to go ahead and work through your homework. If you have any questions while working through the homework, please reference this video again. If you're still stuck, reach out to me in email, and I'll try to help you as best as possible. Good luck, and I'll see you next time.